I want to bring to you a possible connection between Comet ISON and biblical prophecy for a moment. But before I get to that, let's see what's happening with Comet ISON currently. This coming from the examiner.com. Comet ISON is disintegrating for a second time. False alarm is unlikely. 3 days after seemingly resurrecting after a melting event on Thanksgiving, Comet ISON is dying a second death, with this one looking to be permanent. The latest videos from SOHO Solar Observatory are showing a rapidly fading, dissipating Comet ISON racing away from the sun. Unfortunately, while the previous reports of the Comet ISON's death were quickly shown to be premature, the second demise looks to be for real. So, yeah, this is the reports coming out as of December the 1st here. But, let's take a look at SOHO imagery here, see what's happening with Comet ISON. You can already see we're already in the 30th right here, transitioning into December the 1st right there. Yep. So, and I'm no expert at looking at these 2D models, and I would say we should wait to get more data in on Comet ISON rather than jumping to conclusions and saying that ISON is completely disintegrating, which it may be, and you're wondering how can you relate Bible prophecy with Comet ISON at this point, seeing that it looks like it's fading. But I propose that the fading of Comet ISON, or even if Comet ISON completely disintegrates, has no bearing whatsoever on possible biblical prophecy connected to Comet ISON, for the simple reason that we've gotten the message of Comet ISON. Once you've gotten the message, you don't need the messenger. We've gotten the message for the past year that Comet ISON could potentially be some sort of biblical sign, even of the soon return of Christ. And that's coming from a Christian point of view, from someone who believes that Christ will return, that we are living in the days described in Matthew chapter 24. So this is what I want to bring forth to you. What if God was sending a message to us in the form of astronomical calculations, such as what Comet ISON brings to us astronomical calculations from its trajectories, a sign that would literally take a diverse group of minds to extract what would essentially be the most paramount revelation in history, a sign that even the very elect would disregard, as I'm sure a lot seen once they see Comet ISON fading here. They begin to disregard that it has any relevance to biblical prophecy. A sign in the heavens that sending forth a message of merely calculations, such as Comet ISON, the sign that appears, you see, in the heavens itself actually be no more than a messenger of scientific calculations. Because understand, we live in a world where a lot of us have to see to believe. So if Comet ISON dissipates, those who have to see to believe no longer are seeing Comet ISON, therefore they don't believe there's any prophetic significance to it. But what if the greater part of the sign that God was sending had the purpose of no more than revealing to us certain times or a certain event, possibly even the rapture, while believers and those watching for the coming of the Lord are watching the sign in the heavens? They see the sign fade away, as you're seeing Comet ISON here in this video. They disregard it and conclude that it had nothing to do with a message or sign from the Lord. But what has happened here when they do this basically is that they received a letter from a messenger, or a sign, if you will. But once the messenger left, they threw the letter away, having never actually read the message inside the letter, because the messenger is no longer there. So, I mean, they disregard the whole message. So once the messenger has sent forth the message, in actuality, the messenger doesn't necessarily have to hang around. The fact that the messenger has left doesn't make the message void. If you pass a road sign that warns of a sharp curve ahead, then I hope you don't dismiss the sharp curve because you've passed by the sign already. Even if the sign gets totally ripped out of the ground, I hope you still catch that sharp curve. The message, you see, in of itself of Christ's return doesn't determine the actual return of Christ. The message is merely a heads up to those who are already watching. Once you receive the message, the sign, if you will, has already served its purpose. If Comet ISON vanishes, we've been hearing messages of ISON being a potential sign of Christ's return for about a year now, along with other prophetic messages that may be attached to it. We've seen in trajectories ISON's arrival above the earth at Christmas, and also know that a bright star was what God used to indicate Christ's first coming, right above the earth. And we know that Christmas is a reminder of the first coming of Christ. Whatever date Christ was actually born on, as some speculate, we get the picture and a possible message to remind us that Christ is about to come again. The sign is not necessarily a must-have after having received the actual message. I mean, perhaps God, by using ISON's calculations and trajectories, was kind of laying out for us a blueprint, if you will, of his plans of a big event, a foreshadow of times and seasons, and a big event. So, and as a matter of fact, God has been known for doing things that way. Sometimes God wants us to use our intellect to determine times and seasons and events, to put the pieces together. Let him who has wisdom calculate. So the message that I'm trying to get across here is, let's try to understand the messages that God is sending to us with celestial objects such as comets. And there have been comets. There have been many comets in the past, and I presume there are messages behind those as well, most of which the majority overlook. Comet ISON happens to be called ISON. Understand? Notice that. ISON. Very similar to the I am, referring to God. ISON, and the Son part of that referring to Christ. Now, I understand the name of ISON perhaps was not intentionally referring to Jesus by the two Russian astronomers who discovered it a little bit over a year ago. But it may not have been an accident either. There may have been a greater power behind it. And by the way, let me also mention that ISON's perihelion, the day it made its way to the sun, was at a time when Thanksgiving and Hanukkah was actually on the same day. So, and what do you think of when you think of Thanksgiving? You think of harvest. And what do you think of when you think of harvest? You think of Christ harvesting the wheat, his people. And you combine that with Hanukkah being a spiritual holiday that means dedication. Christ is coming for those who are dedicated to him. Now, of course, all of this is speculation, and Comet ISON may not be any kind of sign at all pointing to Christ coming for his bride, and I'm aware of that. But what if it is? It may not be, but the things that I've mentioned here is something to seriously think about and take into consideration. If ISON is not a sign of Christ's return, then we should all be aware that we are in the season nonetheless. If ISON is a message to us of Christ's return, then we can narrow down the timing of the rapture. I would say around Christmas or within weeks of Christmas, possibly even days. If anything else, Matthew chapter 24 talks about, and read it too, it talks about a sign in the heavens indicating Christ's return. And they shall see, I'm not sure of the specific words, they shall see the sign of Christ's return in the heavens. Then shortly after that is when Christ returns. So what could that sign be is the question that I'm coming up with. And I personally don't know, but I'm sure we should watch for it. Whatever the sign is, considering the times that we are living in, we know the sign is surely soon to appear in the heavens. And it may or may not be obvious. So even some of God's elect would miss it or not even understand. So, and then there are theologians and even possibly modern day prophets out there who can bring more insight to this, to the table, but they're kind of sleeping on the job, you know, some of which are keeping silent. But this is all just my take on this. I'm just shining a light on what could possibly be a possible sign, given the facts. So you tell me. Either way, you will definitely know soon. So take care, everyone.